Hi, I'm Rev Myron. I'm a minister through Pathways of Light, and I've been a Course in Miracles student for 40 years, going through the text again this year, uh, reading it with Jesus, asking him to clarify for me, and then I share that clarity. So let's get started. I'm on chapter 5, section 4, teaching and healing. So let's begin with paragraph 2. What the ego makes, it keeps to itself, and so it is without strength. Its existence is unshared. It does not die. It was merely never born. Physical birth is not a beginning, it is a continuing. Everything that continues has already been born. It will increase as you are willing to return the unhealed part of your mind to the higher part, returning it undivided to creation. I have come to you to give you the foundation so your own thoughts can make you really free. You have carried the burden of unshared ideas that are too weak to increase, but having made them, you do not realize how to undo them. You cannot cancel out your past errors alone. They will not disappear from your mind without the atonement, a remedy not of your making. The atonement must be understood as a pure act of sharing. That is what I meant when I said it is possible, even in this world, to listen to one voice. If you are part of God and the sonship is one, you cannot be limited to the self the ego sees. Jesus tells us that physical birth is not a beginning, but a continuing. We've already been born. Birth into the world as physical form is an act of separation and therefore weakens us since it's not shared. We strengthen as we join the whole. All that I do here is for the purpose of returning my whole mind to God. This is what A Course in Miracles is helping me to do. It is my purpose. The ego's existence is not shared, it is without strength. So it's without strength. What does this mean? We all have an ego, so the ego is shared, right? Well, that was my first thought, but then I realized that we each have our own version of ego. How I express my ego is different than how others do so. Yes, some things are similar, but never exactly the same. And there is a strong tendency to be secretive with our ego thoughts. I share more freely than some people do, but not completely. After all, I have the face I show others and the face I believe about myself. There's even the face that I hide, even from myself. It shows itself sometimes, and I'm surprised and often dismayed by what I discover. So, okay, I get it. Our secrets are not shared. And Jesus says, this robs the ego of its strength. Suddenly, I understand something. The strength of God is in its totality. God shares all of itself with all. In so doing, God is increased, not decreased. Sharing is what we failed to do in ego thinking and what we must do in reality. The Holy Spirit uses what we have made to undo what we made. So I use my life to practice sharing. For instance, right now, I'm asking Holy Spirit what it is that I should know about this and how I should share it. Then I share what I'm given. I share it in words, but as I receive and give what I receive, my mind is healed. So I share that healing as well. This happens as an effect of my healing. It's not a choice as ego sees choice. Left to the ego, it might not want to share. The ego believes to share is to lose. At the least, it would want to decide who to share with. But that is what is it the Holy Spirit is shared. Now, as it tells us in chapter 6, section 5, the Holy Spirit communicates only what each one can give to all. The higher mind thinks according to the laws, spirit obeys, and therefore honors only the laws of God. The spirit getting is meaningless and giving is all. In that last part is chapter 5, section 1. Each thought that is love is shared equally with everyone. It might be this simple. Someone I know is behaving selfishly, and I know that this behavior is meaningless. I just know this one for who she is. That is a loving thought that is shared by the entire mind. There are times when, in the same situation, I see the person behaving selfishly and I judge her. This is not a loving thought. It's a meaningless thought. It's not shared. Certainly not shared by the whole sonship. So, though untrue, unloving, that is, thoughts are meaningless, they do keep us in the ego world. The way we wake up from our dream of separation is to undo these errors. This is the second thing I found especially helpful in this paragraph. We cannot cancel out these errors on our own. We need the atonement for that. The atonement is the undoing of the ego. It is a plan that Jesus used to help us awaken. And now he helps us to do what he did. In another place in the Course, he says he is the atonement. So here is what seems very clear to me. What the ego makes, it does not share. And so being divided, it is weak. I'm not sharing all the time now because my meaningless thoughts are too weak to be shared. I can share, though, because I do not have only meaningless thoughts. I also have loving, true thoughts. The Arab thoughts can be undone from me through the atonement, and this returns my unhealed mind to the higher part of the mind, and creation is undivided. To accept the atonement for my error thoughts, I only need to recognize them as errors and desire that they be undone. I remember that I cannot undo them on my own, and that is what the atonement is for. Another thought that occurs to me is that Jesus points out at the end of the paragraph two things. I am part of God, and the sonship is one. I know this is not the first time he's told us this, but now he also explains that this means I cannot be limited to the self the ego sees. Of course, I cannot be only this little personal self the ego knows as me. I'm part of God and share the sonship with my brothers. So I also know myself as that. Right now, I hear the ego voice and the voice for God. But because I'm part of God in the sonship, I can learn to hear only the voice for God. I can do that even here. It might seem hard to believe at times, especially when our minds are befuddled by ego thinking. But do you think that Jesus would say that if it were not true? No, me neither. So paragraph 3. Every loving thought held in any part of the sonship belongs to every part. It is shared because it is loving. Sharing is God's way of creating and also yours. The ego can keep you in exile from the kingdom, but in the kingdom itself, it has no power. Ideas of the spirit do not leave the mind that thinks them, nor can they conflict with each other. However, ideas of the ego can conflict because they occur at different levels and also include opposite thoughts at the same level. It's impossible to share opposing thoughts. You can share only the thoughts that are of God and that he keeps for you. And of such is the kingdom of heaven. The rest remains with you until the Holy Spirit has reinterpreted them in the light of the kingdom, making them too worthy of being shared. When they have been sufficiently purified, he lets you give them away. The decision to share them is their purification. So sharing is creating. This is an idea so different than anything we understand of creation here that it's hard to hold on to. Well, it is not just creation that we misunderstand, but sharing as well. And our misunderstanding of sharing and creating make it impossible to see the connection between the two. Here, sharing is a sacrifice. I share my dessert with you and I have less dessert for me. But if I like you enough, I make that sacrifice. And nothing is created in that scenario. In fact, there is loss. In sharing, I lost some of my dessert, and the end result is that in eating and enjoying it, the dessert is lost altogether. So where is the creation? In reality, sharing is creating. In the real world, everything is a symbol of an idea. Ideas leave not their source, so sharing them does not diminish them. I can give a thought away and it is still in my mind. In fact, if it is accepted when I give it away, it becomes stronger in my mind. So if I understand and accept that desserts are symbols of an idea in my mind, I could never believe that sharing them would cause loss. The idea would simply renew itself, and I would have another dessert. God created me by sharing himself. He did not diminish himself in the process. I share myself with others. Thinking from my right mind, I feel renewed and elevated through this sharing. I only gain from the experience. But when I'm thinking with my wrong mind, I feel tired and imposed upon. I feel that I've lost my time and energy in this sharing. When I see the effects of this false sharing, I know that I'm trying to share through ego, and this is not real sharing. I give my thoughts to the Holy Spirit and I ask him to purify them because I have become confused. Because I want to share my thoughts, really share, not this egocentric giving. My desire allows the Holy Spirit to purify my thoughts, and I return to true sharing, and that is creating. Thank you so much for joining me in this reading. I hope that you found it helpful. If you did, then please like it. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with another reading. See you then.